We are really looking forward to Brentford. If you're listening to this as a podcast, you will get dropped in there. Andy Thomas will be joining us. And also, we will have Katie Alex on a new single, which is called Loving You. Andy Thomas on his book. But all that is to come. We're just very pleased to be in one another's company on this Friday evening before the mighty boys in red go to Brentford. And at the minute, Damien, it feels as though we just bounced from one wonderful game of football to another. It shouldn't be as straightforward as Liverpool are making it feel.
Yeah, we've done it really well, haven't we? Steady as she goes. Almost a perfect record. Obviously, the Chelsea thing wasn't. But apart from that, Liverpool are just taking care of business. And I feel like they're getting into the stride a little bit. And it felt like we were a bit rusty at the start, like all teams will be, but we're picking the points up. The goals conceded are down there. We're looking threatening going forward. I think there's more to come. Very promising. I think we're a genuine... we all wanted to, prove that we were going to be a genuine Premier League contender for that title after last season. And, what a freak season it was in so many levels. But we've got our centre-back position sorted out. The foundation's solid. And the Reds are back in business. Yeah, it's very good. It's a very good start.
It's a very, very good start, Ian. One of the players I didn't talk much about after either of his last two appearances is Ibrahima Konate. And I want to talk about him a little bit, and I want to talk about the two lads who scored the goals, in that we've got carried away and excited about all the other little bits and pieces that you might care to mention. But Konate, I thought Gomez was different class, don't get me wrong, against Norwich. I thought he was everything you wanted a leader to be, everything you wanted a senior centre-back to be. Konate, though, it's 2 games, it's 2 clean sheets, it's 2 solid performances. There's been 1 or 2 wobbles in there. But he's looked impressive, Konate, so far. It's as good a start as is reasonable to expect.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he wouldn't be human if there wasn't 1 or 2 wobbles. I think he's 22 years of age. So coming into this finely tuned Liverpool team, and that's what it is. When it's at its best, it's absolutely finely tuned. And I thought he looked great, Neil, to be honest. I think he's had 2 really good performances there with 2 different centre-backs as well. So I think that's important to mention, because that is a big thing. If you're playing centre-half, normally you want to be playing next to the same fella week in, week out. He's done 1 with Gomez now and 1 with Big Verge. And I thought he looks great. I mean, in terms of attributes you want from a centre-half, he's got the lot, to be fair. He's got the height. And we talked a little bit about that on the review show after Palace, in terms of he's definitely a physical threat. If you're going to go forward for a corner, and we know we've got it with the likes of Virgil as well, you are going to strike fear into your opponents. And I think you've seen a little bit of that in terms of the chaos and the kind of mayhem. And then 1 or 2 others are picking up the bits, because I think Liverpool have been told, be alive to the second ball here. When you've got 2 centre-halves as big as kind of Virgil, Konate and Matip, to be fair, they're all of a similar size.
Ian, it feels to me like there's 5 marking them every single time. Yeah. And so it's 5 on 2. And what that's given is, I think Liverpool have worked this out brilliantly, and it's creating space for others.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think, the message has been to the forward players and 1 or 2 others, be alive, because there's every chance one of these centre-halves is going to win it in the air. And if it does, you've got to be alive to the situation. And we've seen that, the likes of Sadio Mane, the likes of Mohamed Salah, Fabinho at Leeds as well. But not only that, I just think, you can't fail to be impressed by the size of Konate. He is just an absolute unit. And I remember, there's 1 or 2 players in the 90s that used to speak about Wenger's team. Even when you saw them in the tunnel, how intimidated he felt just going up against the side that looked physically imposing. So when you've got the likes of Virgil, the likes of Konate, the likes of Fabinho, Henderson, Alisson, all in the tunnel before the game, you can imagine it's a pretty daunting prospect going out to face that Liverpool team. Try and play football against them. They'll have you off. Get in a physical fight with them. Guess what? They'll probably have you off as well. So, yeah, but really impressive, Neil. And I think just a little word on Joe Gomez, who, came back after a lengthy injury. I thought he did well in kind of both of his appearances so far. I know the Milan one wouldn't have been easy. Again, he's in with Matip that night. But I thought he was outstanding against Norwich tonight. Really, really good.
Chad Ford, full of shit there, John. Moving into the idea of, we'll come on to the comments before the first break. Moving into the idea, John, of the lads who do find the space in the penalty area, stick the ball in the back of the net. Minamino's so alive to that early one. But what I love is it's such a no-nonsense finish. If that's a classic Ian Rush goal, it's a classic Robbie Fowler goal. He knows exactly where the sticks are. He doesn't even need to look, and he's powering it into the back of the net. I mean, the keeper's made of smoke, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, he's I was just laughing at Robbo there, getting in mind. Sorry about this.
What's that prick saying?
So one of the Whittle's top reds he described it as with the hey, what a mark that is. Yeah, sorry, Minamino. He's great for the first goal. He peels away into that space as well. He anticipates where the header's going before any of the defenders do it, and that's quite rushy as well, isn't it? No way that's sort of going to drop, but then it's a turn, it's a lovely swivel and hit all in one motion, and it's not an easy one to sort of strike that to go sort of low and hard. But as you say, Neil, he knows where the posts are, he knows the position he's gone into, and he just sort of hits it. But as I say, I like the anticipation, the fact that he's more alive than anyone on both teams, to be fair, to sort of to that. And then the second one's a really smart finish as well, because he waits and waits, he doesn't snap at it. And maybe, in another game, if he's come off the bench and he's feeling, he needs to impress or whatever, or if he hadn't got that first goal, and he would have snapped at it. But he's really patient, isn't he? And actually picks his moment beautifully in terms of when to shoot and catches the keeper out. So 2 really smart finishes from him. And as you say, Neil, 2 proper strikers finishes.
The really strange thing about him for me, Damian Minamino, is I think with the possible exception of salaries and maybe Jota obviously as well, but he's the Liverpool player I love to see 12 yards out or closer towards the goal. He looks like he's got that bit absolutely sewn up. Yeah. It's the other bits of him it's firstly how you get him there, but it's also the other bits of him getting involved, which are a little bit up in the air. But his work in front of goal has been phenomenal, I think. I think he just looks to me like an absolute poacher.
Yeah. Anyone who looks like they've got time in a crowded penalty area has got a gift.
Yeah.
It can't be coached. You can make players, work the line, go the channels on that, but that's his second goal in particular against Norwich. I like the way you've described the first goal, but the second goal there, he had every chance to miss it, every chance to get tackled, and he just very calmly, sort of very awkwardly went through and just nicked it into the net. Yeah, he's great in front of goal. He's just dead unfortunate, isn't he? Because, the way that we play, you think he fits in, but look at the players he's got in front of him. Yeah. And it's just, and then Liverpool can't afford to, take any chances or blood any players or bring any people through. And it's just so difficult. And if you don't get a run of games, you lose your tricks. That was another good point. If he's coming off the bench cold, he's going to get that second goal. But seeing as he's been on for the match, I'm hugely impressed with his attitude. And I think that goes back to Klopp. You've got to look at, usually you say, well, a player goes on loan, which means he's near the exit door. And Klopp has got this thing where he's got with the players, he's sort of saying, well, you go on loan to get you near the first team, possibly as well. And he has proved that with Origi, of course, who's had, almost a second career at Anfield after going on loan. And he's just got to take that chance. How we work him in, whether we've got to tweak the system, whether he needs a high-profile injury, which obviously we would never want. It's just an unfortunate one for him. And, it's a question of just mixing it all together. But it's a hell of a long season. And if that lad's got that attitude and he's determined to make a career for himself here and he gets a bit of luck, we've got enough games for him to impress in. So good luck to him. I hope he keeps it going.
On John, on Origi, mentioned there by Damian, it's a brilliant header. For me, I feel, if we're all honest, we know that the club wants him to move on in the summer. We can all be grown-ups about this, including the way in which the club have been. And I think there's also been, since the 5-2 against Everton, I think he's not performed anywhere near as well as he can. I wonder if he's had a bit of a come to Jesus moment with the manager, where they've had a conversation, and the pact may well have been, just play me through the middle. I'll showcase myself if you play me through the middle. And Klopp's gone, all right, we've wanted to move you on. It's not happened. We'll play you through. If you're going to come on the pitch, you're going to play for us. Your starting position will be through the middle predominantly. You'll move around, but you'll be played through the middle. That's what I wonder, because to me, in the little appearances that we've seen, including even when he comes off the bench, he's looked at it in a way that he hadn't done for a long time playing for Liverpool.
Well, there's a little bit of previous in that, Neil, with Henderson, wasn't there, when he was playing as a 6 and then he was sort of dropping out the team and he went to see Jürgen and said, I can play further on, and he had that chat and he said, well, okay, well, let's see how that goes. And so, whether if it has happened, you won't be surprised, because there's times where it's happened before where we know Jürgen's listened to footballers who've said, look, I think I'm better off at the moment playing in a slightly different position for you. And he's a manager who very much listens as well. Any interview you hear with him, he always says, I haven't got all the answers. I'm someone who listens to my coaches, but also to these footballers who he trusts and who have got him, a long way in terms of, what we've all achieved together. So it is quite possible that, they've had the conversation, or just the manager's gone, well, what, we've been trying this for a bit. And this, we did it. It worked for a little bit and then it very much didn't. And then they've just gone, well, let's just go back to basics and maybe just ask Divock a bit to go back to basics. And that's what he's done. I think he's played very much as a number 9, not just with the goal, but also I really like this hold-up play. In the week, I thought it was excellent. He was winning fouls for his team, getting us up the pitch. He was also holding up well, bringing his teammates in. And that's what, you want from a traditional number 9, don't you? And he is more of a traditional number 9 at his best than, Jota and Firmino, who sort of played there, really. But, it is good to sort of have that option. And I'd say option, using that word, that's what the two of them, shown that they are for us now, a little bit more than maybe what any of us would have said a week ago. They've come in and said, look, I'm an option for this manager and I'm an option for this team. And that's a great thing.
Mickey Stevens mentions Elliott as another example of going out on loan in the comments here as we go all the way through. It's a good example as well in that. Also, the one downer, I'd say, Ian, from the game, and it's been mentioned by Ryko in the comments there as well, is that Chamberlain doesn't grab the opportunity as you'd like. We'll get into the Kaiser injury later on, but Chamberlain doesn't quite grab the opportunities you like. I actually think he plays quite well in Patch's second half. I think he has a good 10 minutes first half, but it's down to what you want. And what I wanted to see from him was run the show for us here, mate. You're in here as a very senior player, and I think he steps up when Morton comes onto the pitch. I think he does actually take more responsibility. That's one of the reasons I think he has a better second half. But I feel like Liverpool in general, and the manager in particular, are desperate to see Chamberlain sort of grasp something and absolutely hammer it home, and that's just not quite happened for him.
No, I thought he struggled, I have to say. I suppose you've got to appreciate that all footballers take different lengths of time to get back into some form of rhythm. And if you're Chamberlain, he might be saying, well, I need 5 or 6 games in the first team with all the good lads to get myself into some form of rhythm where I'm back to something that looks like my best. The problem Liverpool have got is they can't give him 5 or 6 games because he's performing to a level that just isn't up to scratch. It's not at the level you need. It's not the level required for what we're trying to achieve. So there's a little bit of a catch-22 situation going on in here where he needs the games. We can't afford to give him the games in the series football matches because he just looks an absolute mile off it, where, that first half against Norwich, and I take your point around maybe there's 5 or 10 minutes where there's 1 or 2 green shoots, but it's bouncing off him and every pass seems like it's going astray, and it's a little bit sad to see, to be honest, because I think when you've got a fit and firing Chamberlain, he's a hell of an asset. He is one of the players, probably there's not that many in the squad who can take the ball maybe 20, 25 yards out and drill it bottom corner. He's got the ability to do that, where he can shift and get a shot off really, really quickly. I love his running from midfield when he's absolutely pairing. I always think back to the Champions League game away at City at the Etihad, where Liverpool struggle for a lot of the game, but then all of a sudden Chamberlain starts to make runs from deep and he starts to cause problems, and City don't know what to do with him. And if you could get that version back, or some form of that version, you have got a decent football on your hands. But at the minute, you look at him and he just looks like he looks like a stranger, to be honest, to the rest of the players. And as I say, some of that is down to
now's the moment.
Yeah, he's got an opportunity.
Yeah, Thiago.
He has, but I don't think the manager's looking at Chamberlain as someone who's starting. And I know we're going to come on to Brentford, and I could be wrong. You might give him a start for the reasons I've mentioned to get some minutes into him. But I think there's other people knocking on the door ahead of him still, even with the injuries. And I think Curtis Jones, in the back of a really good Norwich performance, would be thinking to himself, "I'm with a good chance of starting this game, and by the way, I probably should be." So there's a meritocracy as well at play. I think the manager's got to take some of that into consideration when he's picking his team. If lads are showing, then maybe he's got to give them the shirt against Brentford. So I think it's a difficult one.
What I'd say is the fast turnaround, isn't it, between Brentford and Porto? And I think that there might be a couple of changes in there which might give him an opportunity to play a game for Liverpool again.
Absolutely. And I think Porto's maybe one where they might look at it and think, could we give him 60 in that? And it is a fast turnaround, but obviously one of those games that's on the horizon is City. And I mentioned his performance against City previously, and there's been a number of good performances against City, but at the minute, you wouldn't say I'd fancy Chamberlain to be starting that game, for instance. And then obviously after the international break, you'd open 1 or 2 other lads are back and fit and firing again, Keita, Thiago, etc. So it is hard to see him getting that string of games. Yes, maybe the odd appearance, but it's the run of games, Neil, I think he needs.
Yeah.
All right, then. We're going to, if you listen to this as a podcast, we're going to disappear it and come back in a few minutes. In between the gaps, there's Andy Thomas on his excellent, genuinely excellent new book, Underground, Overground, The Fault Lines of Football Clubs, which is terrific. And there's Katie Alex to talk about her new single, Loving You. That is on the TAW Live podcast. If you are with us through the video, the live show that we're doing as well, that is, we'll come straight back into Brentford. So we're just sort of going to count ourselves in. It's 3, 2, 1. And we are looking ahead to Brentford with Damian Kavanagh, with Ian Ryan, and with Neil Atkinson in order to be able to basically clatter through and look forward to what should be a fantastic football match against Brentford. And very, very quickly, there's a lot in the comments that I'm going to pull through for us as we're going, Damian. But I want to ask you the first question. Brentford, for me, the thing that we need to talk about, we talk about our atmosphere, we talk about what games mean to us. For this football team that we're facing on Saturday night at 5:30, this is the biggest game of these players' lives. This is the reward for what they've done across 2 or 3 seasons with this manager. This is a 5:30. It's on the telly. This is their cup final, and we need to be prepared that we are playing a team and we're having their cup final when we might have one eye on Porto, another eye on Manchester City. We need 2 eyes on this.
100%, yeah. It's the cup final for the fans for how many years? Never mind the players and the manager. And absolutely. Yeah. When you get a game like this, I remember Julier's saying was always, they haven't put the cameras on here to watch yous win. They're waiting.
Yeah.
This is on the TV live for an upset. That's it. Now, when we went to Ellen Road the other week, it was a question of if we start as fast as them, if we're committed as them from the first whistle, if we're bang at it, if we're slamming into the tackles, if we're pressing the ball, our quality will out. That's how it worked out. And that's exactly what needs to apply here. If we underestimate Brentford and we let them get in the ascendancy and they get something to hang on to, look at the start they've had, right in the middle of the Premier League table. Fabulous. All credit to them. Good luck to them after tomorrow. So that's it, isn't it? It is absolutely that. It's cup-type football. And, if we think, we'll rotate this or we'll save our energies and we need some... To be honest with you, we could afford a draw in the Champions League game. We can't afford a draw in the Premier League.
Which is mad.
It is mad, isn't it? But, I personally think we're going to get through that group. I think we've shown, enough class there. I think we've got enough to go through that group. If we were going to rotate anybody, talk about experimenting with Oxlade, it's a good point there. Maybe that's for Porto. But if Oxlade's playing on Saturday, it's not for an experiment. We've got to do the business. The 3 points are on offer there. They will go down on their highlights video as the longest part of the highlights video at the end of the season if they get a result against us. And that's it, yeah. So we've got to go down there. And one of the old football managers who I enjoy quoting on a circumstance like this is we're going to respect them. That's what we're going to do, lads. We're going to show them due respect. And we're going to go out on that pitch and then we're going to walk all over them. And that's the way to have it. So you're absolutely in the mindset of this is the toughest game as you could ask for. This is the hardest game we could ask for this weekend, and it will be. But if we're at it and we show the same commitment as them, our guile, then we'll be okay.
For me, John, this is one where the manager's made those noises in a really interesting way. Brentford's a nice story. They all work as a unit. They've shown what you can do with a player. They've talked up at Yves Antony as to how special he is. He's mentioned Mainz. I always think it's interesting when he mentions Mainz. They remind me of when I coached at Mainz. He's very much on, we will respect these. I respect these. We're serious about these. If that was me, I'd be mildly worried if I was Brentford. There's nothing scarier than getting Jurgen Klopp's respect.
Well, it means he's going to take it seriously, obviously, but I think he will do anyway. And look, Brentford have been good this season, and Jurgen will watch the videos, and even the game they lost against Brighton. I do the Coach Home, which is a TAW Pay subscriber show. And we had a Brighton fan afterwards on Monday, and he was honest enough to say that they got away with one, really. So we took our chances, they never, and we got a win that we didn't particularly deserve, but we'll take it because it happened to them plenty of times the season before. And so that's a reminder just at the level they're at. And someone made a comment before and it's dropped off, so apologies, but someone said that Brentford will take points off some of the top 4 this season, so let's make sure it's not us. And I completely agree with that. They've obviously already beaten Arsenal. Look, Arsenal, there he is, Ryan McBurney, brilliant. You did that, wonderful. But the things that are going on this TAW Live this week, let me tell you, exceptional stuff. And I agree with that. And so they've already beaten Arsenal. Look, we don't expect Arsenal to be sort of trouble in the top 4 this season, but I think there'll be a few scalps that they get this season, who are better teams than that, and let's make sure that's not us. I don't think it will be. I think we'll take it seriously. I take the point on mine could be sort of on Porto, but I just think they won this league title so badly and they want it back so badly and they're so determined. I think we'll be 100% up for it. Jürgen, we'll know what he needs to do. And I think actually, although I've been impressed by what they do, how they play sort of might help us a little bit as well. So I'm expecting Liverpool to win if we are on it, but we do need to be on it.
Robert Mason asks, Ian, 3 big games in the next week. How would you balance the centre-backs across the games? Start with Virgil there. What would you look to do? For me, I'd be picking Virgil and Matip for this one against Brentford, and then I'd be taking a view on the one against Porto, but I'd be going Virgil and Matip for the one against Brentford for certain.
Oh, 100%. And I think that partnership is there to be broken up, isn't it, at the minute, in terms of league games? So I think Jürgen's kind of made his bed with that one. I think that is the partnership for the league games until maybe one has to come out because maybe they've taken a knock or something like that. But that's his first choice at the minute. And then, as you said, the European game against Porto, it's hard to judge that one in terms
it's 5 subs as well, Ian, I'd say.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm not quite sure what kind of challenge Porto are. People keep raising the point about them beating Juventus last season. Juventus weren't any great shakes last season. Let's have it right.
Even worse this year.
They haven't started this one in good state after. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think that's the kind of the bar to maybe judge them against. But I think he will look, because of the quick turnaround, he's going to have to look to make changes. So maybe it is a Konate and Gomez for that one. And as I've said on other shows, Neil, you've got to keep some of these footballers ticking over. So you have got to give them minutes. It can't always be Virgil and Matip. Every game does feel important. Every game does feel massive. Every game does feel like a bit of a cup final. But that said, at some point, you're going to need to use some of these other lads because of injuries or fatigue. So it's important you keep all of them ticking over. And let's be honest, Konate and Gomez centre-back partnership. I mean, there's clubs who would give their fucking right arm for some of that. You know what I mean? That is a great centre-back partnership. Yeah. Joe Gomez has been elite for a number of years. Apart from the injuries, which have killed him at times, he's been brilliant for us. And Konate already, even in the first couple of games, there's lots and lots of potential there. So it's one he's got to manage. But at the minute, I'd say the manager's getting it right in terms of balance. And I think he will maybe look to maybe rotate a little bit more than he's done in previous years. I think there was always a thing where he'd try and go with his strongest team all the time, but I think there will be times where he'll recognise, on the back of last season where we did have a lot of injuries, and that was a little bit of a freak, we know that, but I think he will look to rotate a little bit more. And I think in terms of the challenge on Saturday, I'm really looking forward to it, to be honest. As I've got closer to the game, I've maybe got a little bit more nervous about it. I think maybe a week or so ago, I was thinking it was one of those where we go in there and just roll them over. I think you've got to give Brentford credit. They've lost 1 out of 5. They're quite happy not to have the ball. In 4 of those games, they've given the ball to the opposition. And I'd rather about 35-40%. They're fine like that. They're absolutely fine. And even the other night, they play Oldham, don't they, in the League Cup. It's still 5 at the back or 3 at the back, however you want to frame it. And they go and smash them for 7. And putting 7 past anyone's still impressive. You know what I mean? Whatever level you're doing it at. So yeah. I think it's a challenge on Saturday, but it's one that Liverpool will relish. And Liverpool at the minute just feel like they've got the bit between the teeth. They look like they know they're a 90-point team minimum, and that's important.
Just on on the centre halves to jump in there. I think he must be tempted to ask Virgil to go 3 games. In terms of he's left him out twice now, as in the League Cup game, and then there was the game. Was it the Champions League game or
Champions League game didn't start against
Milan. So he's left him out twice. There must be the temptation there to go and ask him to do 3 times. But what he'll be conscious of is this international break, and he's got no control over what the Dutch manager, Louis van Gaal, does. And he'll be going along with that. And I'm not sure off the top of my head how many times Holland are playing, in that break, but he's got sort of no...
Always 3, John.
Yeah, it seems to be 3 now.
Always 3.
Oh, honestly. So if there is sort of 3 games, and if the big ones, then he'll have sort of his eye on that. We'll look at Neil's just checked it's 2. But still, there's those. It's Friday, Monday, and it's sort of not ideal, and they're both qualifiers, so we'll play in both of those, whereas Joel Matip obviously doesn't play international football anymore, so it might be a case that it's actually Joel the one who sort of plays the 3 games, because I think there are 3 big games here for Liverpool, and the 3 we really want to win. Those league games, I think we need to win both of them. Well, not need to win both of them, but it'd be great to win both of them. With Liverpool in a fantastic position.
Need to beat Brentford and then see what happens against City.
Yeah, but to win it would be great, and then obviously the Champions League, if we win it, we're in a great position. So I think under normal circumstances, he'd go Virgil in all 3, Joel in 2, and then Joe Gomez in 1. But I think because of with half an eye on these internationals, as I say, not being in control of what Holland do, I think he might go Virgil 2, Joel 3, and Gomez in 1.
There's loads of really good comments, and if you're watching the video, you can see them on the right-hand side. My favourite's from Darren Murray, who asks, is this on long, like he's me mum? And I've got something on BBC Two she doesn't like, circa 1996. But there are other good ones as well in there, going all the way through there. So they are worth keeping an eye on all the way through. For me, Damien, your question about this game, I feel as though he may consider doing something at left back, but I think Robertson hasn't played either of the last two, so I'd expect Robertson to feature. And it's who's going to be the third midfielder. I don't think he'll rush Firmino back. Even if he can use him, he might use him from the bench. So for this one against Brentford, who's going to be the third midfielder? Who do you want him to be speaking? Who do you want him to be picking for this one?
Well, I certainly want Robertson to play. And it's no bad thing that Chimakasa's done all right, is it?
Nope.
I don't think Robertson should be worried about his place as long as he plays as well as he can. He's such a committed lad. And God, we all know how many games he plays. He plays 39 league games a season, doesn't he, that lad? It just doesn't stop. And
That's more than you, Damo.
Well, but not as many as Ian. And then, then if you look at it, we've needed that sort of luxury, haven't we? And going back on the centre back thing, by the way, I think that was a good way of looking at it. I think Gomez could actually get an extra game in this for this. But with regard to that, you need them fresh. And they are going to get injured if you just play them into the floor. I think Robertson's, had his nice little rest and he's back now, and I think that's what should happen. Midfield's interesting, isn't it? That third place, Curtis, has he showed up enough? I think he did the other night. Is this a sort of game where Liverpool would fancy him? I do think it's one of those ones where we can afford to look at it a little bit because of the riches that we do have in the squad and sort of say, well, yeah, there's these two games close together to negotiate. I know what my 11 is for the Man City game. I already know what it is. And so do I manage it through there? And so that's interesting, isn't it? So I don't mind. I would like to think that extra midfield place you could give to one player in the Brentford game, to another player in the Porto game, and without saying anything, the two lads in those positions can be saying, I want to make sure it's me for the Man City game.
Yeah.
So as much as I love Oxlade-Chamberlain, I think he's a smashing fella, and that injury to him was very cruel and robbed him of a lot, I think. And he hasn't come back to be the same player. I would love to see it happen for him. But I've got to say, Curtis, for me, for Saturday, he's in the zone, he's in the moment. And he's one of those players where he's just like, in the exalted company that he's in, he's just like, give me the ball. Give me the ball, fella. In a telephone box and I'll get round them. Don't worry about it. I'll hang on to it. I'll keep the game ticking over. And the lad just needs games. He's young enough and he's hungry. So that's where I'd go. But I think we do have the luxury of having a couple of little options there and a couple of little ways to look at it.
I think it wouldn't surprise me, Ian, if he's got an eye on Milner for Porto. In that Milner's done well on that ground before, in that he's got that experience. And it wouldn't surprise me if he's got one eye on Milner for Porto, which makes me think this week, it might be... and it also wouldn't surprise me if he felt he didn't have to pick both Fabinho and Henderson for Porto. I think he does have to pick both Fabinho and Henderson for this one coming up against Brentford. I think he'll want to do that. So it's interesting to me where he ends up. Would you go Curtis?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I think, given the nature of the opponents as well, there will be a lot of times where Brentford will sit in, and it'll be that 3 I mentioned before will become a 5. And I think if it's Henderson, Fabinho, and Milner, I think there's certain games where you can say, yeah, I'm all right with that midfield, to be honest. I don't think it's one I want to see against Brentford. I think I'd like the third one to be someone who's doing something a little bit different. And I think Liverpool have used Curtis in slightly different ways this season as well. You've seen him do a little bit on the left. We know he can do a little bit of midfield in various positions, as you saw against Norwich. But I think he's a really good footballer. I don't quite get some of the downplaying of the ability of Jones at times. He's got 50 appearances for Liverpool now. He's 20 years of age. That's some fucking going. Don't worry about that. That's a good effort from anyone's standards to hit that mark at 20. I think he's a really, really good footballer. I think he's got a really good career at Liverpool. There was talk of maybe moving him on by 1 or 2 in the summer. Not for me. I think Liverpool are really, really keen on him. I think he's a footballer who you could still mould into a number of different things. I think you've already seen it. We know as a young player, and he still is a young player, of course, we know he's got that flair and that little bit of off the cuff about him. We all remember the Everton goal. What a fucking night that was, by the way. But he has got the ability to be a bit more strict and a bit more.
I love that we've got to mention that once a week.
Yeah, right, we have John. Honestly, I wrote that down before he came on.
But also just what
it's been at least a week since we've talked about it.
What a fucking night that was! I really loved it as an addition. What a fucking night that was! It was excellent. Yeah, I was there.
I really hope they're not watching. I can't be arsed with it. But Curtis has got the ability to be a bit more strict as well in terms of what he does on the pitch, and he can sit a little bit deeper, and he can control the football really, really well at times. I think there's a number of games where he's done that, and I think Liverpool have almost been on that journey with him, where they've been looking to kind of do different things with him. There's no doubt him as a player. I'm sure he wants to go forward and score goals and beat a man and put it in the top corner, or do what he did at Fulham that time where he runs 50 yards and almost puts it bottom corner. He's got that in his locker, but I think that just shows that there's a hell of a footballer in there. And Liverpool, I think, know that. And for me, I wouldn't be looking past Curtis Jones this weekend. I think it's Fabinho, Henderson, and Jones for me.
I think one of the things for Jones is I can't think of that many games he's played with Fabinho and Henderson, if you know what I mean. Because if there was ever a midfield that if you wanted to go and play some football with, you wanted to go and join that front three, Fabinho and Henderson is the two you want behind you, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've just been completely distracted there by Robbo finding new ways to offer people out.
Yeah.
Twitch chat is his new way. And also to create work for Josh as well, because he's going to help at the AnfieldWrap.com is his way of arranging it. Unreal stuff there he is. He's sticking up for you and your curtains there, Davo.
God, I'm glad to have them at my age. My own house and everything.
What was the question, Neil?
The question was Curtis Jones gets to attack if he's got Henderson and Fabinho as the two.
Yeah, I think so, and I think he deserves a start. And I think he's been patient as well this season. I think that that needs to be said. He obviously thinks he should be starting every week for Liverpool, and he obviously feels like that he's got the talent to be there, and why not? But you haven't heard any complaining from him whenever he's been on the pitch. His attitude's been great. I'm playing as a 6. In the week, which is an unfamiliar position for him.
Impressive.
He was
and huge.
He was great. So I full house from me. I completely agree with the boys that I think he should start. I think he deserves to start, and I think he'll really impress, and he'll have, as you say, Neil, the license to impose himself a little bit more on this. And then I liked the suggestion as well of Milner coming in for Porto, maybe alongside Naby Keita, who will have a little bit of time to rest where he kicked the grass or whatever it was, and then one of Henderson or Fabinho in there, and then you just see where you're at for City. You see who's firing, you see who's done well in these games, and go from there.
Are we all just quickly? We're gonna have a little bit of a chat about the other teams because I think it's a big day tomorrow, so we'll do 2 minutes on that. But very quickly, are we all basically just saying Liverpool win? Damian,
yeah.
Ian,
2-0.
John,
yeah, I think he'll be fairly comfortable in the end.
I think it'll be a graft and then it'll be comfortable.
Yeah,
like Leeds, I think.
Yeah, similar to Leeds.
Yeah, graft and then comfortable. Cans of the Anfield Wrap's own beer that you can get from Glenafric Brewery. Sort that one out.
Nice one, Tim. There. Lovely knock up there, Tim.
Yeah, lovely stuff. Beautiful work. I think that Firmino will come on from the bench and he'll feature against Porto, and I think that he'll give the manager a headache for what he's going to do against Manchester City. All of that will come. Manchester United manager's lost his bollocks, John.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that used to happen the other way around, and so it's really, really enjoyable that it's now happening. Balanced Opinions asking for a link for the beer if someone could sort that. It used to sort of happen the other way around, didn't it? It feels like a bit of a Ferguson that he used to sort of relish and enjoy it, and now we've got it. Yeah, apparently Jurgen Klopp stopping Man United getting penalties. Not that eventually they had to stop getting them, because they were getting them sort of all the time. And,
they've also had loads of penalties since we stopped them getting penalties. They've had 5 since then. We've only had 2, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, but he's rattled, isn't he? And he's in a bit of bother. And he's, they've had a decent start to the league, it has to be said, but obviously a bit of a disappointing result to the Champions League. But it shows they're still worried. They're still worried about what's going on in L4, and as they should be, by the way. It's a rational thought process from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They should be very worried about Liverpool because we're much, much better than them.
We are indeed. If you're wondering why the Manchester United game, as someone in the comments has said, is kicking off at 12:30, it's because the Cortinas are playing tomorrow night in Manchester, and all the Mancunian dads from Altrincham have got to be able to do both. So they just sorted them out. The Jeans and Shoes crew can have a lovely time doing both of those. Pioneered by top Evertonian and Mancunian Andy Burnham. They're his favourite band, and that's not an accident. The big game of the weekend is Chelsea versus City, Damien. And listen, I still don't know what's what, and Phil Blundell rightly put me straight on Friday's show around the idea that we don't know what we want as the right result yet. But it's a very, very strange thing that it could be the first time in 4 or 5 years that from a purely sporting perspective, this could be the first game where it's in Liverpool's interest that Manchester City win it.
Yeah.
And I'm really surprised that that's come around this quickly.
Yeah, me too. It is interesting. We don't actually know what's in our interest at the moment other than Liverpool win. And everything else is secondary because, you know, it looks after you. I happen to agree. I personally think that I know we can finish above Man City this season. I think we can finish above Chelsea this season. And therein, for me, lies the answer. I think a positive result will be Chelsea not winning, and not least because they're at home.
The ideal will be a draw, if we're all honest. But I'm saying if we had to then pick the next one.
Or if you're not scared of Man City, that they win. And it depends, but that's careful what you wish for because they're capable of going on a great run. And so it's, you know, I wouldn't want to get complacent about that. But I think Chelsea not winning would be in our favour. And then next weekend we play Man City, and then by that time the top three, and they will finish the top three this season, in my opinion, have all played each other once. And I couldn't half do with Chelsea losing a couple of points this weekend and then us banging Man City next weekend. Now that is the circumstance, isn't it? So I think with that rationale, and I think then Liverpool could sit pretty at the top of the pile and say, well, okay, our 2 games against the other top 3 have been at home. We've taken advantage. We're points clear of these teams. Let's crack on with flat tracking everybody else between me, you know, and Manchester United will, you know, be a thorn in everyone's side in that instance, of course. And good luck to them because they'll finish 4th.
I like the bingo bango there from Damian. Ian, it is a tricky one. I'm looking for tomorrow's a great day of football from a Liverpool perspective. It really is. It's worth bearing in mind. I want to give a shout out as well. The women are playing on Sunday at Brentford Park. If you can get yourself along to that, do so. John will be there. I may be there, may not be there. But tomorrow's a big day of football from the men's perspective. Ian, what happens at 12:30 there is absolutely massive. I think Villa will give United a game. That's not to say they'll beat them or even take points off them, but I think they'll give them a game. Chelsea versus Manchester City is a serious game of football that I think we'll learn a lot from in terms of how both managers go for it. And it wouldn't surprise me if neither manager goes for it. We talk it up, everyone talks it up, and then it's an absolutely dreadful game by the hour mark, and maybe someone throws the dice.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think you've seen, you know, over recent games, you know, Tuchel's had Guardiola's number a little bit. I don't think it's a game that City are relishing by any stretch, to be honest. And I know both teams have maybe got 1 or 2 key players out. I think Mount's missing for Chelsea, and he comes off in the last game, actually. And he's a player that Tuchel's kind of relied on a lot, to be fair, you know, for all the kind of stars that are at Chelsea. You know, Mason Mount has been one that is a bit of a mainstay, to be honest. Certainly last season, I think there's been a bit more of a cautionary approach with them this season. And then City are missing players, aren't they, as well? I think, you know, there's still 1 or 2 out at centre half, and I think in midfield, Neil's an area where you can really, really get at Man City. You know, if I can't for 1 second think he's going to play Fernandinho, but if he does, they're in fucking trouble because he's now starting to look every kind of, you know, year of those 36 years, to be honest. And you know, people talked a lot about them not getting Harry Kane in the summer. I understand why, but I always felt there was an issue in the centre of the park. And I know they've got Rodri.
Couldn't agree more. I like Rodri, but they could have done with another one.
Yeah, they could have done with another one.
You've got all the money in the world. Why you've got Fernandinho playing for you at the age of 30?
Yeah, and I think everyone thought he was going, and all of a sudden he ends up staying. But I think, you know, that is a weakness, especially when you look at Chelsea's midfield, where it can control tempo, it can control a game. So I think sitting here right now, you'd have to make Chelsea favourites. I agree with Damien. Listen, if you can pick a scoreline, give me a draw all day long, because you know the Phil Blundell thing about you don't know what you know until maybe later in the season is absolutely right. You know, who knows where this season will go. You know, have Chelsea got the ability to string that many wins together that we've seen City do over a consistent basis? Not so sure. But I don't think they'll be far away. You know, given what we've seen over the last kind of 12 months, Tuchel's got them in really good shape, both defensively and then offensively with Lukaku. I mean, you know, he just looks like he's kicked on another gear or two. So yeah, give me a draw all day long tomorrow.
Draw all day long is what we want, but what we are all in it for is Liverpool winning another league title. That is very, very possible, and this weekend would go a long, long, long way towards it. Listen, next week we're doing this 5 o'clock on the Friday. Do tell your mates, do come and join us because we can't wait. It'll be something special. This weekend will obviously be fantastic. There's all the Anfield Wrap stuff that you need, the anfieldwrap.com/subscribe in both the run-up to the game and then the immediate aftermath of the game and then the reaction to the game against Brentford. It's a pretty special weekend, this one. It's one that can really blow the title race wide open. You shouldn't say that after 6 games, but it is true. Liverpool will get stuck right into Brentford. I cannot wait for it. It's a big, big Saturday. Whatever you're doing, Reds, enjoy yourselves. Thank you very much to Damian Kavanagh, to John Gibbons, and to Ian Ryan. We'll be back with more of this next week, 5 o'clock, the Anfield Wrap Live through all the different platforms. See you then.